Hello, good people. This is a PSA from TSA. You are listening to the Underground Railroad Show at Spreaker.com. I am the great TSA with my assistant, That Ninja. I'm sorry for the lack of attendance. I was busy spiking faces and beating data dominoes. TSA out.
I don't know how to do none of that shit.
Who this nigga on that name?
Oh, man, I love the game of golf. It was a beautiful day out here today, wasn't it, baby girl? You didn't think it was a nice day today?
Well, I am sweating all over, so no, I didn't really think it was.
Well, I mean, you got to drive the car. You got to drive the car, and it did have the hood on it, so it kept the sun off of you.
Yeah, but it had no air conditioning.
Well, okay, fair enough. So, we're going to get something to eat, right?
Of course.
Cool.
And you're obviously paying, right?
Always. Man, golf is a fun sport. Hey, I drove the ball pretty well today, don't you think?
Pretty well to the far right, yeah.
But, okay, even though I went right, my iron game was really good, and I was able to fight my way out of that.
Yeah, but you hit it into the sand, and you did that quite often, might I add.
Even when I went in the sand, my chip was really tight, so I was able to get out of there and get close to the flag.
After 3 times.
You have to admit, though, my putting game was really good, and it saved me a lot of the times from all of the bad hits I had out in the fairway.
And it only took you 11 holes. Listen, until you get a good golfing game, I'm gonna keep giving you shit.
I'm improving. I mean, since I've gotten started, haven't I got a lot better?
Yes, you've gotten better since your injury.
We don't have to talk about my shoulder, but I mean, that's another reason why it's coming along slowly, but, you know, I'm gonna get it. I'm gonna get it.
Sure.
Hey, baby girl, I'm about to go hop in the shower. When I get out, we'll head out to the volleyball tournament, okay?
Okay. Oh, can I use my the computer?
Oh, yeah, of course, baby. Of course. Hey, baby girl.
Yeah.
Repetition breeds familiarity.
Familiarity breeds comfort. Comfort breeds complacency or success. We're going for the latter rather than the former.
All right, good deal. Handle business.
Okay.
Hey, remember you're a beast out there. Act like it.
I will.
All right.
Let me see what he got in these emails. Spam. Overdue bills. Not surprised. Fuck the police coming straight from the underground. Young nigga got it bad 'cause he's broke. What is this? Sarah? Linda? Becky? Amber? Amy? Molly? Ginger? Heather? Karen? Oh, hell no. We are not having this. No, I don't want no Pancake Tuesdays. Oh God, delete. No, I do not want your lemon bars, Karen. Oh, my dad's gonna get...
Do you have strong opinions and you're looking for a way to express them? Are you tired of carbon copy sports radio that infests the airwaves? Do you have creative concepts and ideas that you want to share with the world? Then this is not the commercial for you. This commercial is all about
Kinko's University.
That's right. Kinko's University gets you prepared for the podcasting world when you don't have the chops for it. If you're one of the many people looking to get into podcasting, but you just don't have the skill, Kinko's University is the university for you.
I want to do a podcast, but where do I start? And what do I talk about?
Kinko's University.
Don't worry, here at Kinko's University, the first thing we teach you about is OPP. That's right, other people's perspective. So you can always have something to talk about getting it from another source.
Podcasting looks fun, but do I really have to do all that research and show prep?
Kinko's University.
Absolutely not. Here at Kinko's, we have classes like No Preparation 101, where we teach you to get around all of that pesky show prep because we know you don't have the time.
I wonder what the best time slot is to get the most listeners.
Kinko's University.
Don't worry, here at Kinko's, we have a class called Recycling Ideas 101, where you can find a time slot that works and just jump in that slot to try to make it happen for yourself.
Kinko's University.
I want to come up with new content and subject matter, but I'm not that creative.
Kinko's University.
You'll also take Regurgitation 101, which will help you come up with other people's subject matter that you can recycle and make your own. That's right, here at Kinko's, we teach you how to get around hard work, getting new wrinkles in your brain, and having to work hard at your craft. Come to Kinko's, where you can take these top courses with top teachers. Most people that go to Kinko's graduate with Kinko's degrees, that's right, as master copiers. Kinko's University, for the skilled impaired.
Kinko's University is not a real university and is not accredited. You don't actually learn any skills. You just learn how to mimic people who have actual skill.
Underground Railroad Show with that ninja. All aboard have the tickets ready because the train has arrived. Delayed or on time, it's time to get on board.
What's going on, fam? This is the Underground Railroad Show hosted by your boy, that ninja. Thank you for coming aboard. Hope you are enjoying the ride thus far. 10th here. My 10th annual Dr. King and Malcolm X episode. Thank you for coming aboard and rolling with me. Truly appreciate it. Let's go ahead and get into it. First things first, I understand everything that's going on in the world of pigskin. I have a general rule, and let me throw this out there just for the uninitiated. The Underground Railroad Show, I named it that because what I attempt to do on this podcast is set free the stories that are chained up by the mainstream media, the history that is edited at best or buried at worst. I try to talk about the things that aren't your normal conversation, the things that I feel need to be discussed, or at least speaking about it from what I hope or what I try to do is a different angle, a different take, just not the same mundane, low-hanging fruit type of conversation. So I attempt to have those conversations that I don't normally see, that I don't necessarily see occur on a regular basis. It's usually the same mundane thing throughout the day. And what I attempt to do is simply set free the stories that appear to be chained up, in my humble opinion. We might go from sports, anything topical. I do an annual show on religion. But what I'm getting at here is, generally speaking, whatever the chat room does, I don't have restrictions. I don't say you can talk about this, you can't talk about that. I'm not going to read this. You can do whatever, and I generally will flow with the chat room. There are only a few shows where I will ask you to stay on topic, and I generally don't have those issues on those shows. This is one of those shows, the annual Dr. King Malcolm X episode. I'm going to have a certain subject matter, so that's what I'm going to be on initially. On the tail end, if there is time for a tail end, I'll address anything sports related. So any sports takes and discussions, questions, any opinions, I'll put a pin in that, and I'll get to it on the back end of the show. if time allows. I'm not sure the time will allow on today's show. The only shows where I don't necessarily go with the flow, the only shows that I have somewhat of a restriction. It's not really a restriction. It's more of I'll get back to that later. But the only shows I do that, this show, the annual show on religion, and I believe the bracket show. I think those three. There may be one or two here and there, but for the most part, even if you go somewhere wild in the chat, I'll read it on those other shows. But those three, I usually stay on the subject matter. Bracket show, you have to or you'll never finish. Show on religion, you can't jump off into sports on that. It doesn't make sense. And this show, I'm not on sports today, so I understand we have a title game. On the tail end of the show, I'll get to it. If not, I'm fine with talking about it after the fact. But I will continue with what I'm on today. So I enjoy doing this show. I like talking about it. And the reason why it's the annual Dr. King and Malcolm X episode is because I believe the depiction or a lot of the things that we were taught growing up as far as who these men were to each other, they always tried to show them or display them or paint the narrative that they were adversaries, that they weren't two men in the same fight, and nothing could be further from the truth. I guess nowadays I have to say this. This picture is not AI. This is when these two gentlemen were having conversations and coming to a common realization that they had the same goal and they were not above working with each other, which is really what led to both of their demise. So I originally named it the Dr. King and Malcolm X episode, which I've been doing since my first year. It's my 10th year of podcast and really enjoy it. It's a kind of a stress relief for me, a little bit of therapy, and I enjoy on a certain level, the worldwide think tank, because you can listen to this show anywhere. So being able to have that think tank and that conversation with people in real time, I don't take that for granted. It's, the technology is a cool thing if you can find the right way to use it. But again, because of where we are today, I'll repeat, that's not AI. But the point of the show originally was to point out that there were two people in the same fight. Afterwards, it evolved and or grew into speaking about anybody in the struggle that doesn't get mentioned. That's really what the episode is about. So it can be anybody from Dr. King to Malcolm X Farrakhan to James Baldwin, Medgar Evers, the minister, Marcus Garvey. It could be anybody that I feel is relevant and, has a place in the conversation. But I usually come at it from some particular angle, and I have my angle today on this. One year when I did this, I did a Q&A with brother Malcolm. I did a Q&A with brother Malcolm. I felt the concept was pretty good. I didn't like my execution. Today, I'm going to have a Q&A with Dr. King. The title of today's show is White Backlash. White Backlash. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. I think it's relevant at any time that we've been in this country. And we're going to discuss that today. And just like any other show, as I talk about the subject matter and we get into it, the reason for the title will become apparent and you'll see and hear examples of white backlash. And let's keep in mind, the backlash is over absolutely nothing. The backlash is over feeling like you're losing something. And what they're really saying is equality in their mind is losing. Because when you're used to having an advantage, and forgive me for not remembering, I know Sluggo gave me the quote if I remember correctly. Forgive me for not remembering. Whose quote is this? When you've had the advantage for so long, the slightest hint of equality is taken as an attack. So when you're used to having an advantage and when you're used to your privilege and your short-sightedness and your ignorance just being normalcy, when that is challenged and or, dare I say, taken away in some way, shape, form, or fashion, it's looked at or looked upon as an attack, as opposed to equality or simply leveling things out. So the white backlash throughout history at any point has always been over nothing more than a loss of privilege or the perception that there's some type of privilege being lost. Hence the title, and again, white backlash will come up throughout the course of the show. So Dr. King's legacy to me, for me, I think it's imperative, or I think it's important. First and foremost, obviously, we should be taught. I think black people learning the same history. History, if you're not going to teach real history, there should be, just like there was, that thing in school where they pulled people with X amount of Indian blood in them to the side and allowed them to go to some other class to get their Indian education. I guess after they felt like they slaughtered enough of them, they could do that for whatever reason. Again, we're not talking about the straight up Native Americans. We're talking about people that had X amount of blood, X amount of Native blood. In the same fashion and that same structure, we should have been taken out of class and taught the side of history. Apparently, they didn't want their side to know, but that really wouldn't work. It should be universal, especially if you're claiming to not see color. We know that's not true, because if it wasn't, then the history wouldn't be so edited to show one group in a light as if they are truly superior and or the forefathers or inventors of anything other than murderers and thieves. But again, let's stay on topic. I think the best thing you can do for Dr. King's legacy is learn from his teachings so you don't go backwards. The things that he lived and went through and showed us through his verbiage and through what his actions, what he went through. I think all of those things are lessons taught. His speeches and thoughts, and as well as Brother Malcolm's, as well as any of our true heroes I'm going to bring up today. I look at their thoughts, their verbiage, their teachings as scripture. I find that scripture to be the most relevant scripture to me to maneuver in this country properly. Once again, I find that scripture to be the best thing for me to learn how to maneuver in this country and to have some form of sanity. And that's just me. So for me, I think the best thing you can do to honor Dr. King is to learn from what he's taught us, meaning you don't accept the same verbiage that they used in the 50s and 60s, because they're still using the same verbiage, same excuses, same selective outrage, same short-sightedness. So I think that's the best thing you can do for any of our heroes, is learn from the lessons that they taught us through verbiage or action or inaction, and act accordingly. To not disrespect them by allowing people to bastardize their legacy, shit on their legacy, use their legacy for their own well-being. One thing I can think of, I won't get into it today, I can remember this senator and or congressperson, somebody in a position of power that happened to be of a Hispanic descent, I believe Mexican American. And on Dr. King's holiday, somebody that's never spoken up for black people ever, that's never said anything against their co-workers, who sign bills, who ignore what happens to us, not standing up for us against the police, not doing any of that shit, chooses to bastardize Dr. King's words and saying, if you're black and you've never stood up for anybody Hispanic, you don't deserve to celebrate Dr. King. Bitch, are you out of your fucking mind? And, you can look where they're at today, but that's not really the point. The point is that should be met with vitriol. Somebody picking and choosing what language of his they want to use for their own benefit. I think that's how you honor Dr. King, Brother Malcolm, Medgar Evers, the very underrated Marcus Garvey. I think that's how you honor people like that. They've given us lessons that we should never allow the same opposition to pretend need to be taught again, or a sensitivity class, or there needs to be discussion. Not at all. Just stop acting in the ways of people you should be ashamed of. And if you're proud of said individuals and continue to act like said individuals, we shouldn't entertain a bogus and insincere and, quite frankly, disrespectful discussion. I usually would have rattled off a few quotes by now. As a matter of fact, is it Griff? I believe Griff had a very good quote out earlier that that fits what I'm saying at the moment. And forgive me for that pause. Where's that at? Interesting. All right, let me get off of that because that's taking way too long. And I know why. Oh, there we go. Dr. King said, our lives begin to end the day we become silent about things that matter. The great Griff earlier today, let me make sure I get this right. I think Griff hit us with one early in the morning, or first thing today, and I'm trying to. All right. Nothing in the world is more dangerous than sincere ignorance and conscientious stupidity. Once again, nothing in the world is more dangerous than sincere ignorance and conscientious stupidity. And this is a Dr. King quote from late 50s or early 60s. And I think with lessons learned, we realize that that's actually what's happening now. Sincere ignorance and conscientious stupidity. On both sides to a degree, but especially by the opposition pretending as if they don't understand what's happening in front of them. And I apologize, before I jump dead into what I want to get into, I don't see anything. Okay, no, I don't see anything saying that the volume's bad. And that's fair, sir, that's fair. I'll put a pin in that. One of my favorite James Baldwin quotes, to be a Negro in this country and to be relatively conscious is to be in a rage almost all the time. And I think things like that are necessary so you understand your position, so you don't think something's wrong with you because you don't smile at everything you see. But these quotes make sense if you study the history of the country. And I think these things not being taught to us are stripping us and robbing us of an education that would have bettered us and gave us a better mentality to function in this country. But for us to know we come from excellence and to know that people that came before us said things like this, they're hiding that on purpose and giving us a false sense of individuals. It's part of the slow IV drip of brainwashing that we deal with in the country. But let's just get to the gist of the show. And this is the Underground Railroad Show, hosted by your boy, that Ninja. 10th annual show on Dr. King and Malcolm X, and really a plethora of individuals I felt that has sacrificed for us and showed us things throughout the years and are true heroes in history. So what I want to do today is talk about Dr. King. And again, it's been talked about how they evolution or learning or going through life. Nobody's the same person. You're not the same person you were as a teenager, the same person you were in your 20s. You're not the same person you were in your 30s or your 40s if it applies. Point being that you go throughout life, you learn, you change, you evolve. You don't have the same opinions that you shared, that you had as a young person or a person that had less life experience. So you have to allow opinions and people to evolve. And what the mainstream does when they bastardize Dr. King's legacy and his words is they didn't allow him to evolve, or they didn't discuss his evolution. And even when they talked about him, they still chopped his words up and used them to suit their own needs. And nothing could be more disrespectful than the people that hated that man with a passion, that called him a terrorist. A terrorist. Again, a person that was labeled as non-violent and not aggressive enough. Again, to them, a terrorist is anybody that doesn't submit, smile, and accept their bullshit. Any so-called leader, any black person actually doing what is necessary or something that will uplift us as a race, any black person that does that or says something that's necessary or just the truth, the plain truth, is going to be met with opposition from America, because the one thing that they hate is anything that's positive for us. Anybody that they attack, I never really roll with it, because they attack anybody that's beneficial for the most part. So I'm always weary about news reports, because they did that to Dr. King back in the day. And there were actually black people that rolled with that because of the media machine. And we know that the media machine is a motherfucker. We know that. And again, I'm not going to get lost too early before I really get into this, but point being is that I feel that the way you honor a Dr. King or Malcolm X, the way you honor our true heroes is to learn from the lessons that they taught and not allow the very opposition that slandered them, murdered them, sought them out, disrespected them, and that they opposed and fought to determine how you feel about them. And a lot of us have fallen victim to that. And as we're seeing in real time, as they're erasing our history in real time to crickets from the people that should have something to say. Know why you're talking about? Let me not drift. But there are a lot of dumbass things being brought up and being put into the public eye, but people in powerful positions that may or may not have podcasts, if you want to talk about something, you should be talking about our history being erased by the ancestors of the people. Excuse me. Our history being erased by the worst people, by the ancestors of the worst people that have ever lived. And there are crickets from everybody that is in a position to speak on it. And quite frankly, if they speak on it, they're met with vitriol, and I even think people have lost jobs over it. But there's definitely something to be discussed right there, and it's so quiet, and to me, that's a true indicator of one of our biggest issues. Along the lines of the media, and I'm about to jump into it, I might do quick intros, and I'm going to start this Q&A. This is the media, an irresponsible media. It will make the criminal look like the victim and make the victim look as if he's the criminal. If you aren't careful, the media will have you hating the people who are being oppressed and loving the people who are doing the oppressing. This sort of propaganda, this is the sort of propaganda tactic that I would call psychological warfare, the great Malcolm X. And again, that to this day, and it aggravates me that that lesson is taught, and to this day, the media can sway black people just like that. Just think about all the ignorant shit that savages have been doing within the last couple of years and how they've been arresting producers, singers, writers, keeping dumb shit in the news, and the so-called news and the so-called media and all these so-called journalists, everything they're talking about is bullshit and speculation about ninjas when you have facts about a nation full of fucking terrorists along with the ignorant motherfucker in the White House. And they're talking to you about souped up domestic violence and everything but that. They can sway and take our attention just like that to this day, because the true lessons that we should have been taught, the things that would mean a lot more than the fake ass history and the bullshit that they flooded our minds with. If you have a clean slate and you learn something, you can at least take that in, absorb it, and digest it a lot easier. But if you're already filled with a bunch of bullshit, when you get the truth, you might be confused because you've been taught bullshit your whole life. The history that we were taught growing up is criminal. The way to make it relate for people to understand how serious it is when I say that, and this usually, met with, the white talking points that a lot of people don't know are white talking points. Say, you don't think about it, you don't think critically, you break it down to some dumb sound bite, what are you doing? Or, some stupid shit like that. It, actually, instead of engaging in the conversation. The issue is that the same bullshit tactics that were used in their day are being used now. And if we haven't learned at this point, or we're not willing to implement and understand that all these lessons have been taught and it's already been spoken about, we're definitely not going to get anywhere. But we can't allow their legacy to be disrespected by allowing these people to engage in false conversations that they know have no merit. They're not confused about anything. They're not puzzled. When somebody uses a certain word, that doesn't change the damn subject matter. And I'm trying to remember some of the things. Okay, what was it? Defund the police or whatever? And the media ran with that, trying to make it a negative thing. Who gives a goddamn? They're killing niggas left and right, and because of the phrase defund the police, now the majority Caucasian Americans that want to act like they don't understand the issue are using that as an excuse to not address the issue. That can't happen. That can't happen. We're so far past that. Oh, I could listen, but you're saying defund the police. I mean, come on. All they're saying is, I really don't give a fuck about you. Shut up and take it. Malcolm X said, and the same thing remains true to this day if you look at their behavior, not their verbiage when it's cute, their behavior. This is Underground Railroad Show hosted by your boy, that Ninja. I'm going to do this Q&A with Dr. King, and I'm going to do it with an interview that he did, I believe in 67, after, after the initial advances made and after seeing the progress or lack thereof over the course of 3 or 4 years, how his opinion may have changed in what he thought, and why is it that we never hear any excerpts from this particular interviewer or these thoughts that he spoke about in that speech that I believe was in New York. And shout out to the light-skinned wonder who gave me a nice clip to summarize this at the end of it. Let me do intros and some soundbite limitations right now because I had to set some things up. So again, this format, not a lot of space. I had to do some things to get everything I needed in place. So some soundbite limitations, just letting you know that ahead of time. Also, during the course of the interview, there are 2 slight glitches, but it won't affect the overall message. First man aboard the train, the aforementioned light-skinned wonder, Light Skywalker himself, coming in saying, Howard Rollins, you have only done 3 football shows in 24 weeks of football. That is not true. That's not true.
Who this nigga on that name?
One more thing. I meant to say this. Apologies. I listened to the last show and I'll repost that. Sorry about that. But the sound bites, and I spoke about this before, I'm going to do at least a 2.5, maybe 3 second pause, maybe longer than that. I'm not running the sound bites until the end of my verbiage. For some reason, I'm saying what I'm saying. I'm giving it a second. I'm hitting the sound bite, but it's still running into the tail end of what I said. That's something that's happening on the end of StreamYard. So if you see me doing a long-ass Captain Kirk-ass pause, it's because I'm going to give it a second before I hit it, because I noticed on the replay that the sound bite is running into my verbiage and it sounds crazy on the replay. But that's not me. It's this format, and I'm not sure what that loop is. So I'm going to give it at least a 2 to 3 second delay to ensure that doesn't happen again, because it sounds crazy on the replay.
Motherfucker.
But sir, Howard Rollins, I've given y'all more than 3 shows. I've been slipping, but it's been more than 3 shows, sir.
Who told you that?
3 shows is crazy.
Who told you that?
We got the great Sidney Jackson on the train. The great Sidney Jackson comes aboard the train to his usual bomb drop because he slapped the sauce out of his wife's hands when she attempted to apply it to my ribs. True story. Real talk. Thanks for coming aboard, Sidney. We have the great Sluggo the motherfucking Hammer on the train. I might have ran into the soundbite again. We have Sluggo the motherfucking Hammer on the train. Thank you for coming aboard, sir. Sluggo said, America is promoting the same stale Martin Luther King narrative where they pick and choose the get along quotes. They wouldn't dare cover his quotes that spoke the real towards the whites. They would not, sir.
Amen, preacher.
They would not.
Amen, preacher.
Excuse me, double checking something. Okay, we're good there. All right. Also, because of this format, I had to be creative with the way I set up the Q&A. So as long as I'm steady with my hands, we should be good. This format is not the previous format. There were definitely some adjustments that had to be made. But preach, sir.
You're right. It's fact.
ABM said, Nick is always going to give us a sassy James quote. Always, sir. Always. Because James Baldwin stood up and spoke on the truth. And let me say this on the tail end of your chat, no pun intended. If they put that flaming fellow in that movie where he plays James Baldwin, and at any point in that movie promote that bullshit agenda, they are shitting on that man's legacy. They're shitting on that man's legacy. He did not stand up and scream that. He understood that he was black first. And he spoke up for black people because we're in the position where we needed assistance and help and civil liberties and common decency, nonetheless equal rights. So he didn't go around with this bullshit agenda that they have in media and on TV shows and wherever else they want to push it. If they shit on that man's legacy with that cat, it's criminal, and somebody should be held accountable. We shouldn't stand for it. But as soon as I saw that, I said, man, if they bring that shit up during the court, if his entire story could be ran without that even being brought up. And it should be the most minor thing in the story if they did. You never saw him bring that shit up and wear it in public and all that goofy shit and he never did any of that. If they shit on that man's legacy, it's a goddamn shame, and somebody should be held accountable. Not with words. Not with words. Hey, my favorite, I read that one. I'll give you another one. Top of my head. I had to go back to my reference. I should be able to pull that up without doing this. But I'm actually struggling to remember that off the top of my damn head. That's a damn shame. Okay, I'm going to come back to that. Okay. Another James Baldwin quote, since you have jokes. Not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it is faced. Let me say that again. James Baldwin said, not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it's faced. The reason I love that quote is because we still have that issue right now. What is one of my main themes? Just like speaking about this election, everybody's talking around the problem. The problem is the same people that opposed Dr. King, the same people that opposed Brother Malcolm, the same people that opposed James Baldwin, same people that opposed and murdered Medgar Evers, same people that opposed Marcus Garvey, the same people that opposed the minister, the same people that opposed the minister's teacher, the same people that opposed everybody that tried to advance us are the same problem. And the so-called people that have a voice, and even the people that we're around on a regular basis via the internet, are talking around the problem, talking about black men, Kamala, and all this goofy shit. And you're not talking about the fact and the main issue, the main problem is that we're around a bunch of ignorant ass people that was okay. They thought it was okay to put this motherfucker in the office in the first place. That's the issue, because these are the people you're around. How the hell can we fix the problem if we're not facing it? If you're too busy screaming about voting and this goofy ass narrative now about men and women, this divide and conquer shit we were talking about a long time ago still works. So again, his quotes are relevant. And I respect Mr. Baldwin because unlike the majority of people today, I did not see that. Sorry, I didn't mean, I just looked and saw a... Interesting. Okay, sorry about that. Didn't see that ring. I don't know who that is. That is an interesting name. But I like that quote simply because it's still relevant. Again, not learning from lessons, talking all around the problem and looking for something to change. I don't know how you're going to change anything when you want to address the problem. ABM said, there was a good Dr. King today. There was a good Dr. King tribute today on Fox 5. I need to do some research on this book that talks about Dr. King's murder and the implications that ninjas close to him were involved. I've heard rumblings, but haven't researched it. But once again, and okay, there we go. Apparently, Dr. King sent wrong. There was a good Dr. King tribute today on Fox 5. I need to do some research on this book that talks about Dr. King's murder and the implications that ninjas close to him were involved. Boy, I tell you.
Go to hell.
If so,
Go to hell.
boy, it's hard to wait 2 whole seconds before hitting the soundbite, but I have to. So if it looks crazy, I have to do it on the replay. These sound bites are running into my words. And let me get through this because I got to get into this interview. Sluggo said, apparently Dr. King sent his last sermon to his secretary the week he was killed. The sermon was titled, Why America May Go to Hell. I heard Dr. Cornel West and Tavis Smiley bring that up a few days ago. So clearly he was getting progressively radical. Again, preach. Preach. And again, that's what we're about to get into. But again, preach, sir.
Amen, preacher.
And the only reason I'm somewhat shorting you on the sound bites is I'm just trying to get to the interview. And I understand what we're up against, and I don't want to run into that, and people might lose themselves, but I'll simply say.
The truth is for everybody, but everybody might not be for the truth.
Think that'll suffice today. ABM says, Sluggo, that's why schools only gave us the I Have a Dream speech. The history we were taught was cruel, but these kids aren't even getting anything today. Man, again.
The truth is for everybody, but everybody might not be for the truth.
You black, you live in America, you in trouble. I can't get you in no trouble.
That shit's crazy. Sluggo said, like they give a shit about police. Like they give a shit about police. See January 6th. Again, man, preach.
The truth is for everybody, but everybody might not be for the truth.
You black, you live in America, you in trouble. I can't get you in no trouble.
Crazy ass unbathed savages attacking the country. But for some reason,
America's so worried about black folks. America's so worried about black folks.
Sluggo said, preach, ABM.
Amen, preacher.
At best, everything taught today is sanitized. And that's the problem. We have to keep the legacy alive because these motherfuckers aren't. They're telling us to our face that I, the descendant of the worst motherfucker that have ever lived, who perpetrated the worst savagery in the history of the world on your ancestors, I'm going to decide how, when, and where your history is taught. And because I forgot to say this earlier, it would be like German people telling Jewish people when, where, and how their history should be taught. Not only that, they're telling Jewish people what actually happened. There weren't any ovens. There were dysfunctional saunas. There weren't gas chambers. There were spaces with compromised atmospheres. And again, if you're more offended by me saying that than the fact that they're erasing our history in real time with a smile on their face, and why? Because they don't want white kids to feel bad, but they don't put the suffix on it. We don't want our kids to feel bad about the truth. There should be so much outrage. There should be way more than words, and we're not even getting words. It's some sad shit. It's some really, really sad shit. And again, they weren't teaching us anything anyway. And now they're dumbing that down even more. So it has to be us, whether our kids want to hear that shit or not. And I'm guilty of it myself, but whether they want to hear it or not, they need to hear it or it's going to die. A people with no knowledge of their history is like a tree with no roots. Man, we're so close to being there. We're so damn close to being there. Sidney Jackson said, preach, Sluggo.
Amen, preacher.
Cheeto pardoned those thugs that attacked the Capitol. Cheeto pardoned those thugs that attacked the cops. Exactly. And that is what the subject matter should be. empowering uneducated, ignorant, privileged, unbathed, sister fondling savages. It's like an undisciplined child. They're going to grow up to be an irresponsible teenager and a piss poor excuse for an adult. It's like an untrained pet. It's going to piss and shit everywhere if you don't give it discipline. These motherfuckers have no discipline. Nonetheless, good sanitary bathing habits. And the reason there's a lack of discipline is all these years of being passive and ignoring all of these signs. When Barack Obama ran, these ignorant motherfuckers lost their mind for no reason, and it was taken way too casually. And I talked about it so much at the time. So many people I went to school with coming out of the closet because their idea of what America is was disrupted. But what they showed was you never thought of it as us and we. You always thought of it as us and y'all. And that's the truth according to your behavior. And that was so casually glossed over. And I think glossing over things like that instead of checking savages that claim to love the country, that claim they don't see color, that claim they love the American dream, as soon as all those things were proved to be a fallacy through their actions during that time, you should have treated them like that from that point forward, and that is not what happened. That's not what happened. And that's an issue if you ask me. But I digress. Back to the chat. ABM said police forces are paramilitary units now. They have as much gear, they have as much gear as some army units. That's what it means to defend them. That's what it means to defend them and quit. That's what it means to defend them and quit giving them tens of millions each year to militarize their domestic policing. And that's where the issue comes in. They're walking around with all this gear on and shit and not being held accountable. The passiveness of when they're murdering black people for no reason in full fucking, the hell is it? In full fucking high definition 720p or what the fuck ever, that they're doing this shit in real time and there was not enough vitriol. Not only were there really no true physical ramifications outside of the heroes, let me honor these heroes. Thank you, Micaiah Xavier Johnson. Thank you, Micaiah Xavier Johnson, hero.
Amen, preacher.
Thank you, Gavin Long. Thank you, Gavin Long, hero.
Amen, preacher.
One second. The cop, ex-military. Damn. They couldn't find a bad picture of him. Tried to ruin his life and he got their ass back. Thank you, Christopher Dorner. Christopher Dorner, right? Thank you, Christopher Dorner. Thank you, Christopher Dorner. Hero.
Amen, preacher.
That's the name that's in my head. I'm hoping I'm not fucking that up. I believe that's right. Those three men are heroes. I digress. Back to what you were saying. But again, those men reacted to police murdering black men with no repercussions. White juries and judges just letting them off, laughing about it, and attacking black people that peacefully protested, saying, yeah, we're doing it, but if you dare to peacefully protest, we're going to shoot at you, we're going to hit you with tear gas, we're going to shoot your eye out, and the media is not going to cover it because they're just as fucked up as us. It's pretty much in our bloodline. That's why those men reacted like that. Again, the white backlash is because they're hearing words that are the truth that make them uncomfortable. Yeah, that's true, but don't say it because we say so. That's racism. That's an attack. Oh, and shout out to the motherfucker that needs to catch a stray for what did he do? He on Dr. King's birthday or celebrated holiday, he made the number one priority reverse racism against Anglos. Once again, the only cure for psychopathy is incarceration or loss of life. there is no cure. Coming aboard the train with his traditional good evening.
Motherfucker. Motherfucker.
We have none other than the great JBJ. What's going on, sir? Thank you for coming aboard. Hope you are enjoying the ride thus far. Sluggo said, what cat? That Porter fella? Yeah, it's him. The Porter dude. They have him playing James Baldwin. I don't know when that's supposed to come out, but considering the way a lot of these things are being written, if they make that an agenda at all, they're shitting on his legacy. If they make that an agenda at all, they're shitting on his legacy. Keep in mind, these people wrote a false story about a tribe of women, wrote a story with Harriet Tubman where they put in a false black bad guy so you wouldn't concentrate on the worst motherfuckers that have ever lived. And the fucked up thing about it is it was accepted because they shielded it with a black person being the director. So instead of being pissed off at just shitting on somebody's history, who we have a clear account of how it was, you're allowing them to change it and whiten it up so they can feel better about their piece of shit ass ancestors. That's not how this shit is supposed to go. And again, if German people, again, Jewish people wouldn't have been invited by these motherfuckers to get away from the Germans, I guess it would be like that for them. But German people telling Jewish people how to celebrate their shit, and imagine every Jewish movie having a German hero. That's what our shit is. There's always got to be some white nice person because we're in a country ran by those people. So you can't claim, oh, I never had a slave. Yeah, but you're acting just like them. You're proud of them. You celebrate them every year, which is shitting on us. You get upset when we tell the truth about how fucked up they were. When we tell the true story about how it was for us back then, you want to put in a hero so you can feel better about the bullshit. So you're with it. You are them. You celebrate them. You are one and the same if you won't admit the truth and you punish anybody and or attack people that tell the truth. Again, we're not. I digress. Let me finish the chat so I can get to this. ABM said, Nick, the dude that played the fairy godmother and is playing Mr. Baldwin will put the alphabet stuff heavily into the film, unfortunately. ABM, if they do, man, it's dead wrong, man. It's dead fucking wrong, bro. That shit's dead wrong. ABM says, Sluggo, yeah, Billy Porter, but he is not a fella. Sluggo shaking his head. ABM said, the black elite turned in, the black elite turned in Tavis Smiley after he called out Obama. That's true. They went and dug up chicks he was smashing. You have to work to find Tavis now. Previously, he was very visible. You know what? Preach, sir. And again, preach. And to the people that did that.
Motherfucker.
Again, you really have to learn from your history. Forgive me for not having his name off the top of my head. I don't want to get too far into it. Okay, no, I didn't have to do that. Let's just go here. Marcus Garvey. When Marcus Garvey was making advancements for black people, and he wasn't doing it at the behest of white America. He wasn't doing it in a way that made them comfortable. He wasn't doing it with them being a part of it so they could claim hero. So they opposed it. That is when the FBI allowed their first two black people so they could come in and undermine the Marcus Garvey movement and the Garveyites. And Garveyism eventually led to the thought process of a Malcolm X whose parents were Garveyites. The first two black people they put in the FBI, they put in to sabotage Marcus Garvey. So that is historical proof, and that is why I get so frustrated that black people still don't understand that when they put somebody that looks like you in that position, there's a reason. And I don't know why you're so happy to celebrate this same media destroying an entertainer, but when somebody that looks like you was in a position to help you and they never do anything, you defend them to all in because you don't know about the two FBI agents that they hired to sabotage Marcus Garvey. You're not I'm pausing on his damn name. I'm trying to remember his whole name. What was that piece of shit's name? Elder Michaud. Elder Michaud. He was a pastor. That was his shield. He worked to discredit Dr. King at the behest of the FBI, ran by J. Edgar Hoover, who he was said to have commonalities with. He agreed with so much that J. Edgar Hoover did. Who knows? Maybe J. Edgar bent him over. I don't know. Maybe he bent J. Edgar over. I don't know. But that piece of shit worked with them to discredit Dr. King, speaking bad about him in his sermons, spreading rumors at the behest of the FBI, so-called information that was nothing more than bullshit. The same thing that the two FBI agents that worked for the two FBI agents that they sent to discredit Marcus Garvey, the same thing they used to do, exact same techniques. That is the evidence, and that is the reason why you can't be quick to defend people in that position. Number one, if they're in that position and they're actually sincere, they're limited or they're in danger. Or they're in that position because they're going to do what's necessary and what is asked of them, and that is to control the black population. And when a person is called out for legitimate problems, you scream simple-minded Anglo shit that is a white narrative. It is so damn sad. That's why it upsets me, and that's why it's the ultimate disrespect to ignore lessons taught and allow them to rehash this shit, because that's literally all they're doing. But those are two examples of why you just can't blindly defend and smile at every ninja that might be in a so-called position of fucking power. Those are two of the worst ninjas ever. They should have got shot in the face. Where am I at here? Sluggo said, now your boy Negative 92 is talking about passing the Insurrection Act to quell protests in Minnesota. That's America in a nutshell.
Motherfucker.
Again, we're going to commit heinous acts, and if you protest, we're going to arrest. But we're going to let a bunch of worthless, should have been shot in the face and set on fire motherfuckers attack the Capitol. I'm going to release them. So now it's just going to make, again, if you don't train your pets, that's why you think these motherfuckers are acting like this. They have somebody that's telling them it's okay to act like your ignorant ass fucking ancestors that any decent person would be ashamed of. Act just like them. Go ahead. Another thing. Let me say this. I meant to say this in the opening. Proof positive that black people are fucked up mentally. Back in the day with the insurrections and with these massacres, black people, out of fear of death, didn't speak about it because that's what the whites told them after they watched the whites kill with impunity. The military left and just let them kill ninjas left and right, and then they claim it was some kind of race war so they didn't have to pay insurance. This is the history that America wants to erase. These are the people that are supposed to be fucking angels and heroes in every goddamn movie. Back then, out of fear, people didn't talk about what happened. But now, out of fear of not being temporarily liked by somebody that has shown you they don't give a fuck about you, most ninjas won't speak on bullshit in an intelligent, factual manner, not speculation, not all that. I'm talking about things that are undeniable. Who the fuck is knocking on my door? I'm going to assume that's not my house. Forgive me for pausing. Okay, I'll continue. January 6th. I remember the first time I posted that. I think two people, maybe three responded or had anything to say about it. Any comment, any little thumbs up, maybe two or three people. This past year, Sydney had a good post. When I saw it, it reminded me, oh, I need to post. I posted. ABM posted. I'm sure there were others, but I remember looking at those posts and seeing the lack of response. So back in the day, it was a threat of actual physical altercation when you didn't really have a right or a way to defend yourself. There was going to be no punishment for what they were doing, kind of like what the police are doing now, kind of like what some of the citizens are doing now. No repercussions. And now it's done voluntarily, really, just from the threat of being looked at funny or not being liked by somebody showing you that they don't care. It's confused. I think that's really a sign and the mentality, because any negative post about a ninja, which the majority of the time is a white narrative, garners so much more attention. And I think that's a nice little small case study on the mentality of most black people, that they won't respond to something like that. That was an act of terrorism. And I think that it's safe to say that because of the thought process or response of people you may work with, you just leave something like that alone. And that's fucking crazy. I can't talk about an attack on the country because people that say they love the country might get mad and it could compromise my ability to make money. If you know that's the case, then can you really say you believe in this country and this system and the way that it functions, and that it's even, how can a country that has that mentality even attempt to be fair? The truth said by a black person is looked at as an attack. An actual attack is looked at as nothing. It's just ignored. That shit's incredible. I digress. Let me finish this chat so I can get to the actual meat of the show. That threw me off. Because if that was my door, somebody was banging on it like they didn't have any goddamn sense. Anybody that knows me should have gave me a call, so that was different. ABM said the Minnesota Gov just put the National Guard on alert. The powder keg is about to blow up, and I'm going to sit back and enjoy the clear folk battling it out. Cheeto just pardoned a 2-time convicted meth dealer. Boy,
you must be on something.
It's everything's apparent, sir. Everything's apparent. Everything's apparent. I mean, I don't know what else to say. Everything's apparent. Everything's apparent, sir. But again, preach. As I still struggle with this as I still struggle with this damn new board. That's a damn shame. But I'll preach, sir. Let me get off of that. Let me keep moving. Everything is just not where it was. It used to be so much easier.
The truth is for everybody, but everybody might not be for the truth.
Sluggo said, when our heroes are their enemies and vice versa, that's proof enough that we're dealing with two different Americas. So please spare our black kids from your sexually deviant heroes, because it may make them feel bad. Oh, let me say that again. When our heroes are their enemies and vice versa, that's proof enough that we're dealing with two different Americas. So please spare our kids from your sexually deviant heroes, because it may make them feel bad. Exactly. And these are sexually deviant heroes, the founders of the country, rapists, slave owners, savages, the scum of the fucking earth. And they're labeled as heroes and founding fathers and all this bullshit. Get the fuck out of here. Sidney Jackson said, that Porter, they, them, always got to strut like a faggoty peacock with his tail feathers raised aloft. And that's not how James Baldwin should be depicted. And I don't know if he has any living relatives to do something about this, but that's not how he should be depicted. That's not who he was. That's not how he showed himself to be in the public eye. I swear I want to go check something. I don't have, let me see, my phone's right here. I don't have anything from anybody I know. That person can actually get in. Daughter's in Nashville. I can't think of anybody knocking on my door I give a fuck about. Okay, well, let me keep it pushing. Let's come back here. Sluggo said, apparently you can use the P word to describe their sexual deviant behavior. That rhymes with cedo. Ah, the cedo. Okay. You can't say pedo. Okay, interesting. They have these weird restrictions in here. But, y'all are articulate enough to get around it. Sluggo said they also didn't know about the black guy they used to sabotage Fred Hampton. Exactly. They've done this a long time. Sluggo said J. Edgar Hoover was the Billy Porter of his time. Straight flaming. 100% correct.
The truth is for everybody, but everybody might not be for the truth.
Sidney Jackson said, notice the KKK has never been harassed, stopped, or impeded by law enforcement. In actuality, the cops protect these hooded cowards because they are one and the same. In the early 2000s, the FBI investigation found that white supremacists had infiltrated law enforcement, but no one, including Obama, did anything to stop it or protect us. I can't keep holding back these bombs.
The truth is for everybody, but everybody might not be for the truth.
Here goes a bomb drop for everything y'all have been saying for the past 8 or 10 chats.
Amen, preacher!
Sluggo said, preach, Sydney.
Amen, preacher!
ABM said, Sid Jack, they blocked my message, but the carpet specialist 3-on-3 is on tonight. Boy, you stupid. Stupid. Okay, I think we're here. Sidney Jackson said, ABM, why would they run the scissoring league game against the national championship? Lack of penis or lack of dick make them bulldaggers stupid. Y'all are dumb as hell. I should have put a fucking pin in that, but I already read it now. ABM says Sid Jack putting dump. Excuse me. Okay, Sidney Jackson just plain dumb, like how the WNBA schedules. Sluggo said, Ninja, that might be the alphabet boys at your door. Don't get deported for hoarding. Don't get deported for hoarding Jesus and Javier, sir. No, I don't know what that was, but that was a ridiculous knock. That was a really loud knock. And anybody that knows me, I shouldn't have got a knock at my door like that. That was a little weird. And it wasn't anything important. And honestly, if you walk by the garage, you can hear me talking. Somebody knows me would have said something, so that was kind of weird. But I don't have anybody that's supposed to be coming through here. Anybody that knows me would have said something, so I mean, fuck them. And again, anybody unannounced, I hate it for you. Sydney said, exactly, ABM. These bulldaggers are so stupid and stubborn. ABM said, Ninja, my origin chat was the Just Niche soundbite. I got you, sir. I got you. All right, man. Let's go ahead and get into it. So that's a nice little warm up. Plenty of time for everybody to get in. Let me get into this. I know I'm going to run into the game this evening, but I should have just enough time to get through this Q&A, get reaction, and get this episode in. So let's go here. So I have a Q&A that I'm going to do. And what this basically is, due to technology and platforms and the abilities that we have, I have the ability to somewhat recreate an interview and have an interview with Dr. King in his latter years and speak about a lot of the things that they don't speak about concerning Dr. King and what his beliefs were and what he evolved to. So that's what we're going to get into today in the Q&A with Dr. King. So I'm going to address this as if I have the ability or was privileged enough to meet and interview Dr. King before his untimely demise. And another reason I couldn't really play this interview out, and the reason why I wanted to be able to pose these questions is if you look at any of these old interviews with Brother Malcolm, with Dr. King, the colonizer or the ninja, you know, much like a Elder Michaud, would mirror the opinions of white America, which is why they were on TV. And they be there to deflect and ask dumb questions and pretend like basically his follow-ups and his questions were just the short-sighted view of what was even considered to be a decent white person then. So he didn't have good follow-ups. He didn't address anything that Dr. King said. When Dr. King clearly asked a question, he came back with something trying to push the short-sighted agenda that he had. Now, with all that being said, let's get into an interview with Dr. King. As a matter of fact, forgive me as I forgot about a little bit of production. Let's do that. Let's go ahead and do that. All right, so Q&A with Dr. King. Let's go here. And I might read a little bit of chat while I'm doing this. I'm probably going to go through this entire Q&A because of the way that I had to set it up. But I may stop and read a couple of chats. But if I do, there will be no sound bites added to said chats. So good evening, Dr. King. It's a pleasure to meet you. Have a lot of respect for you, sir. And I appreciate the fact that when I know you were given the opportunity to sell out or grovel or share a right opinion and view, you could have taken money and stood down. You could have played the game, and you didn't do so. In a world today where I'm watching that be the commonality amongst a lot of men of the cloth, and their flock, so to speak, are very quick and to defend them to no end, no accountability, and definitely not living up to the standards that you set. So I just like to say that I'm privileged and pleased that you were willing to give this interview and that you conducted yourself in the way that you did. With that being said, sir, let's just get started. Dr. King, what are your thoughts on the notion that racism is a Southern thing and not a nationwide thing, especially when referring to our states up north and our brothers and sisters that live up north? And hold on, before I allow him to answer that question, let me make an adjustment. All right, adjustment made. So once again, Dr. King, what are your thoughts on the notion that racism is somehow cut off at the Mason-Dixon line, as if those thought processes and that type of upbringing cease to exist in the northern cities?
It's subtle, but it's becoming much more visible. Anybody can see that the schools are more segregated in the North today than they were in 1954 when the Supreme Court rendered its decision declaring segregation unconstitutional. Anybody can look around the ghetto and see that ghetto schools are predominantly segregated and devoid of quality. Anyone who moves through a major ghetto of our country will see the housing conditions. People don't have to be reminded that they are forced to live in slums in many instances, and they're often rat-infested, vermin-filled slums. And it isn't too hard to see the exploitation that the Negro confronts in the ghetto, where he is forced to pay more for less and constantly trying to make ends meet, but because of either no job as a result of unemployment or a job that is so economically unprofitable that the person can't make ends meet. And I think they see all of these things, and more they're coming to see them, because before the people of the North were looking to the South and they supported the struggles of the South. Now they're coming to see that their problems are very real and they've got organized to grapple with them.
And I agree, and that makes a lot of sense. I mean, a large portion of the massacres that have occurred in this country have occurred in these so-called less racist northern states and cities. So racism is definitely not a Southern thing. It's a nationwide thing. It's a worldwide thing, unfortunately. And I believe that's another white narrative trying to downplay or limit their actions, or just, generally trying to downplay our struggles in this country. So I definitely agree with that. Racism is definitely not limited to the South. Dr. King, do you feel that America practices hypocrisy when it comes to their alleged desire for black people to be equal in this country?
The hypocrisy of large segments of the nation on the whole question of racial equality. I think the best example is that many of the senators from the North and the West, and congressmen generally, who voted for civil rights legislation in 64 and even 65 with the Voting Rights Bill, refused last year to vote for civil rights legislation because it dealt with an issue applicable to the North, the whole housing question. And this, it seems to me, was the greatest expression of the hypocrisy of many of our citizens and many of the senators and congressmen of the North.
So what you're saying is that some of the people that claim to be on our side and want to help us, when it comes down to the actions, they didn't step up when it was time to vote. And again, let's take the time to recognize that I think ABM put up a post on Facebook showing how a lot of the Democrats voted for or went with Trump on, didn't oppose him on some of his things and whatnot. And again, they always dumb this down to a Republican Democrat thing instead of an overall problem with America and the majority of its citizens thing. And that's what happens when you get swept up in this Democrat-Republican thing. If Democrats were truly different, they would not be supporting anything that he does. They would speak about January 6th and him being a rapist and him being buddies with one of the worst pedophiles in the history of mankind. They would speak about this every day. They don't. They're complicit, and or they're just like him, and or they're empathetic, and or they're part of the game that they're playing. But the one thing that they're not is an ally. So I think that when Dr. King answered that question, he showed you that even in 67, they were running the same bullshit game they're running now with politics. Alleged empathizers that are doing absolutely nothing of substance. And this is the Underground Railroad Show, hosted by your boy, That Ninja, annual show on Dr. King and Malcolm X. A quick confirmation. And again, I'm having to use this system to record. It's different. How is the volume enough where y'all can hear? Can y'all hear what's being played? Can you hear the answers to the questions? Because it started out at a level that kind of self-adjusted and dropped. I recorded it a couple of times. I'm just hoping that it's audible. So can I get a confirmation on if this is audible or not, please, before I continue? And once again, doing a Q&A with Dr. King and just asking questions of Dr. King as he was in 67 after he had, thank you, Sidney Jackson. I needed that. Thank you. Okay. That would have been terrible if y'all couldn't hear that. Okay. So let me continue. And again, Dr. King, I thank you for this opportunity. Dr. King, do you feel that racism still exists in America, and do you feel that racism is our biggest obstacle in trying to achieve equality? Do you feel that racism is still part of our issue and part of our opposition and part of the obstruction for us achieving equality in this country? And could you elaborate as to why, please?
Of the North. Well, I think the dilemma is much deeper, and I think one during this period of transition has to be very honest with America. And honesty impels me to admit that America has broad racist elements still alive. Racism is still existing in American society in many areas of the society, North and South. And the other thing is that there has never been a single, solid, determined commitment of large segments of white America on the whole question of racial equality. I think we have to see that Vacillation has always existed. Ambivalence has always existed. And this, to me, is the so-called white backlash. It's merely a new name for an old phenomenon. I see the white backlash as a continuation of the same ambivalence and vacillation of white America on the whole question of racial justice that has existed since the founding of our nation. I think the other thing that we must see at this time is that many of the people who supported us in Selma, in Birmingham, were really outraged about the extremist behavior toward Negroes. But they were not at that moment, and they are not now, committed to genuine equality for Negroes. It's much easier to integrate a lunch counter than it is to guarantee an annual income, for instance, to get rid of poverty for Negroes and all poor people. It's much easier to integrate a bus than it is to make genuine integration a reality and quality education a reality in our schools. It's much easier to integrate even a public park than it is to get rid of slums. And I think we are in a new era, a new phase of the struggle, where we have moved from a struggle for decency, which characterized our struggle for 10 or 12 years, to a struggle for genuine equality. And this is where we're getting the resistance, because there was never any intention to go this far. People were reacting to Bull Connor and to Jim Clark rather than acting in good faith for the realization of genuine equality. Do you
think... Dr. King, preach. So what you're saying is that, or what I interpret that to mean is that there were people that claimed they weren't racist because they didn't like the brutalization. They didn't like dogs being sicked on black people and cattle prods and being beaten, shot, and dogs sicked on, and fire hoses. They didn't like that. But in no way, shape, form, or fashion did they ever want true equality. So even the so-called good Anglos amongst us still didn't want equality. They just didn't like the savagery. That rubbed them the wrong way. But they still weren't on board with equality. Like, everybody has the same chance, truly. Everybody can do the same things, truly. That continues to be an issue. And again, I'll go back to that James Baldwin quote that you can't change anything that isn't faced. Same issue still exists, and talking around it with voting and politics and alleged hate for women just because you're that word. Again, it takes me back to Super Senior. I spoke about Super Senior. That was an individual that, was supposed to be a senior but took freshman and sophomore classes. Somebody threw something at him. I know the individual that threw something at him. So did he. But he didn't want it with that individual, so he attacked somebody else that he thought was a softer target. And that's how I feel about these people speaking about everything but the problem. You're attacking what you feel to be a softer target. That is very Anglo of you. Attacking soft targets, very Anglo. But not addressing the issue and attacking people that allegedly didn't vote, or people that just won't push your narrative, or people that vote, but they're smart enough to actually think and question. And attacking that and being animated with that, but I don't see the same animation about the descendants of the worst people that have ever lived erasing our history in real time. Ignoring obvious race, and that's again why it is unacceptable for black people in positions of power to say out loud, America is not a racist country. That is unacceptable. Unacceptable, but thank you for being candid, sir. Dr. King, what do you say to white people that say they aren't racist and they want equality, but the behavior doesn't match?
Well, it depends on the level that we are talking here, because I think you have to make a distinction between the people who are genuinely and absolutely committed in the white community on the question of racial equality. And I must confess that I think they're in a very small minority. I think the vast majority of white Americans will go but so far. It's a kind of installment plan for equality, and they're always looking for an excuse to.
Okay, sir. What I take that to mean is that, or what I'm hearing you say is that they may say that they're not racist or they don't see color, but their actions simply don't coincide with that particular narrative that they're giving. Always looking for an excuse or a reason as to why they can't do this or can't do that. And I love the way you put it, an installment plan. Again, white people want to come out of their bullshit on their schedule, on their own time, and on their own schedule and of their own volition. They will do nothing. They will do absolutely nothing. An installment plan is a great way to put that. Humorous, yet informative. It brings me to one of your quotes. Now is not the time to fall victim to the tranquilizing drug of gradualism or symbolism. Now is the time to make real the promises of America. Gradualism is this installment plan for freedom that you speak of. Symbolism is a statue for George Floyd. Again, think about this. Don't get emotional. When George Floyd was killed, to calm down and pacify black people, they made a statue. Nothing solid, nothing of substance. Symbolism. Dr. King told us symbolism was bullshit in the 60s. Gradualism, a little bit at a time. Things that Steve Harvey is telling us is okay. Y'all know we got to play the game. It's 2026, nigga. What game? And now, as a people, the majority of us are 100% victim and falling victim to the tranquilizing drug of gradualism and symbolism. And you're speaking about that now. And the other side of that is that symbolism means nothing, but at the same time and in the same breath, still pisses off white America to where they feel like they're losing something. And what? We have white backlash over a statue that means nothing, that does nothing. There was no policy. They gave more money to the police while they put up that statue. They made policies and hate bills for Asians, LGBTQ / community, and Asians, Jews, and the LGBTQ / community. A complete and total slap in the face of black people who are dealing with shit in real time, and everybody's ignoring it because nobody gives a fuck about us. I can say that due to their action and or inaction. So again, preach, sir, preach. This is something that comes up a lot, and this is almost a personal question to a degree, sir. I have these conversations. I don't like to have service conversations with my fellow Americans, Anglos in particular. So when having these conversations and discussing the history of the country, there's one false equivalence they bring up all the time that really bothers me. Can you address the false equivalence and comparing black people who were brought here in chains to white immigrants that came here by choice and by invitation? Bring us your weak, your tired, your huddled masses. They came here because they would rather bring in and pay white immigrants than pay these black people that no longer have to work for free. And every time I bring up our struggle, they always want to talk about immigrants and how they had to deal with racism too. Can you please address that false equivalence and why it holds no validity when it comes to black people? What is the major difference between black people and white immigrants, if you will, sir?
Oh, but so you can't thingify anything without depersonalizing that something. If you use something as a means to an end, at that moment you make it a thing and you depersonalize it. The fact is that the Negro was a slave in this country for 244 years. That act, that was a willful thing that was done. The Negro was brought here in chains, treated in very inhuman fashion, and this led to the thingification of the Negro. So he was not looked upon as a person. He was not looked upon as a human being with the same status and worth as other human beings. And the other thing is that human beings cannot continue to do wrong without eventually rationalizing that wrong. So slavery was justified morally, biologically, theoretically, scientifically, everything else. And it seems to me that white America must see that no other ethnic group has been a slave on American soil. That is one thing that other immigrant groups haven't had to face. The other thing is that the color became a stigma. American society made the Negro's color a stigma. And that can never be overlooked. So I think these things are absolutely necessary. The other thing is that America freed the slaves in 1863 through the Emancipation Proclamation of Abraham Lincoln, but gave the slaves no land.
Lately, it's as though everything
land on nothing in reality, and as a matter of fact, to get started on. At the same time, America was giving away millions of acres of land in the West and the Midwest, which meant that there was a willingness to give the white peasants from Europe an economic base. And yet it refused to give its black peasants from Africa, who came here involuntarily in chains and had worked free for 244 years, any kind of economic base. And so emancipation for the Negro was really freedom to hunger. It was freedom to the winds and rains of heaven. It was freedom without food to eat or land to cultivate, and therefore it was freedom and famine at the same time. And when white Americans tell the Negro to lift himself by his own bootstraps, they don't look over the legacy of slavery and segregation. I believe we ought to do all we can and seek to lift ourselves by our own bootstraps. But it's a cruel jest to say to a bootless man that he ought to lift himself by his own bootstraps. And many Negroes, by the thousands and millions, have been left bootless as a result of all of these years of oppression and as a result of a society that deliberately made his color a stigma and something worthless and degrading.
Dr. King, I know this is crazy to say, but you're preaching. This is definitely different than the depiction they give us of you when they pick and choose and bastardize your speeches to push their agenda and label you as somebody that wanted equality for everybody, as if white people had some type of equality problem in America at the time. It's extremely insulting, and what's even more insulting is that people that were with you at the time are not defending who you truly were and truly defending and depicting your legacy as it should be. White America brought in white immigrants and gave them an economic floor. They did not give black people any economic floor whatsoever. And we still outdid their ass. And what is their response? Murder and attacks sanctioned by the government. And this is the history they want to erase to depict themselves as explorers, travelers, forefathers, and inventors. You never discovered shit. There were people here. You didn't invent shit. You stole that. You didn't cultivate shit. You brought somebody in to do that. You didn't invent shit. You stole that. You didn't do any type of exploring, exploration. You just killed people and took their fucking ideas. You're what you've always been, fucking savages. And when a man was simply negotiating, when so much more was warranted and justified, the white backlash was to murder this man, because that's how weak and pathetic the people that we're here are. The people that we're here with are. They don't want their lie disturbed. They don't want the to quote that soundbite I played, the paradise they built for themselves on our ancestors' blood to be disturbed. They look at having to hear things that make them uncomfortable as an attack. And at the same time and in the same breath and in concert with that, have zero empathy for what black people deal with on a regular basis, which dwarfs any of the things that they may complain about. What I'm basically saying is we're here with a lot of mental midgets that if they had to deal with what we had to deal with on a regular basis, they'd be jumping out of windows left and right because they're so weak and pathetic. They want to hide their children from the truth in words, but they want us to deal with actions. Not only that, they're not offended by the actions that we have to deal with. They're offended that we speak about it. To know the history, to understand it, and to hear those people say, pull yourself up by your bootstrap. Everybody had the same opportunity. It is so damn insulting. And not only that, it is categorically false. I thank you for clarifying. And, to hear you speak, it's a lot different than the things that they pull out of their ass on your celebration of your birthday. I apologize for my language. This is again, this is obviously a matter of opinion, but to the best of your ability, can you articulate what the black man in America wants in 1967? And could you also include all of the black people that have fell victim to the slow IV drip of psychological warfare that we deal with? Again, Reverend Michaud was hired to take you down, and I doubt he was the only one. They've done this throughout history, so that's an example of somebody that fell victim to the psychological warfare. So please address where you think black people or what you think black people want in this country or from America. And if you don't mind, address those people that are falling victim to what I would call psychological warfare.
Something worthless and degrading. I'm convinced that almost every Negro in this country, other than those who have been so scarred by the system that they've become pathological in the process, and we all have to battle with pathology, and nobody really knows what it means to be a Negro unless one can really experience it. And I know we all have to battle with this constant drain of a feeling of nobodiness. But in spite of this, I think the vast majority of Negroes in this country know that they want to be people. They want to be men. They want equality, period. It just boils down to that. And we haven't been able to be people. We haven't been men because of all of the conditions that we've lived with and the syndrome of deprivation surrounding conditions, whether it's in housing, in the economic area, or in schools, or in the vicious credit practices that we face in the ghetto, and all of the problems of closed doors and constant defeats. But in spite of all this, I think we all know, basically, that we want to be men. We want to be persons judged not on the basis of the color of our skin, but on the basis of the content of our character. Well, I think we have...
Okay, Dr. King, I didn't mean to interrupt you right there, but let me pause you right there. Before you continue, I'd agree with that. I mean, and again, I think that having to ask or fight for those basic ass rights is extremely infuriating. And I think that over the course of these years, you've been infuriated and frustrated by the lack of progress or the pace of the progress. And I think that's evident in your rhetoric. So I appreciate you being candid and showing people what evolution is, and knowing and understanding that you're not the same person you were as a teenager or in your 20s or in your 30s, but even 3 or 4 years ago, especially in the times that you're in, one is going to have some type of change of opinion because empirical evidence is going to implore you to change your opinion because of the evidence that's in front of you. So I'd imagine from 63 to now, you've seen some things that have caused you to maybe reevaluate your thought process. So I thank you for being candid. There are some younger people, or the younger generation, quote unquote, that feels that integration is akin to assimilation. So with that in mind, do you think that integration also means that we need or must assimilate? And do you think that integration alone is enough for us to achieve and or reach the goal of equal rights in this country? Or will it take some form of revolution along with integration?
Well, I think we have to see what they are saying. I would be the first to agree that integration does not mean giving up everything that has an Afro-American taint, so to speak, a background. I think there are certain unique things within any culture and certain cultural patterns that when you get to the process of amalgamation can really lift the whole culture. And it seems to me that integration at its best is the opportunity to participate in the beauty of diversity. I think the other thing that we've got to see is that these young people are saying that there must be a revolution of values in our country. As Jimmy Baldwin said on one occasion, what advantage is there in being integrated into a burning house? And I feel that there is a need for a revolution of values in America, because some of the values that presently exist are certainly out of line with the values and the idealistic structure that brought our nation into being. Unfortunately, we haven't been true to these ideals, and many values of so-called white middle-class society are values that need to be reviewed and re-evaluated, and in a real sense, they need to be changed. So I think the young people in the Negro community who are raising these questions are raising some very profound questions about our total society. In other words, they are saying that there must be a restructuring of the architecture of our society where values are concerned. And with this, I would agree with. So in the quest for integration, I think we can offer our whole nation something, because there are three evils in our nation. It's not only racism, but economic exploitation of poverty would be one, and then militarism. And I think in a sense, and in a very real sense, these three are tied inextricably together, and we aren't going to get rid of one without getting rid of the other.
Hey, Dr. King, I agree. And it seems to me that you're saying integration isn't enough. There has to be some type of revolution of some sort, some changing of the thought process, something more than, the symbolism of having the privilege of getting a miseducation from a group of people that have shown through their actions that they don't like you that much, or they like you if you remain within the confines of the structure that if they feel you should be in. If you stay within this box that I feel you should be in, I'll tolerate you in this moment. And that's essentially what it is to be black in this country to a degree. And again, it's 2026 now. This took place in 1967. This is the Underground Railroad Show, hosted by your boy, That Ninja, having a Q&A with Dr. King in his latter years that he was allowed to see, and his thought process that we don't hear about and that we don't see and that isn't promoted on his national holiday. Along those lines, Dr. King, it's been 4 years since your I Have a Dream speech. Has anything occurred in these past 4 years that has caused you to reevaluate your thought process, or maybe something that you have in addition to your original thought process? Have you seen anything that has caused you to reevaluate the way you thought 4 years ago?
Yep. No, I didn't envision that then. I must confess that that period was a great period of hope for me. And I'm sure for many others all across the nation, many of the Negroes who had about lost hope, saw a solid decade of progress in the South. And in 1954, which was, 64, 1963, 9 years after the Supreme Court's decision to be in the March on Washington, meant a great deal. It was a high moment, a great watershed moment. But I must confess that that dream that I had that day has at many points turned into a nightmare. Now, I'm not one to lose hope. I keep on hoping. I still have faith in the future. But I've had to analyze many things over the last few years, and I would say over the last few months. I've gone through a lot of soul-searching and agonizing moments. And I've come to see that we have many more difficult days ahead, and some of the old optimism was a little superficial, and now it must be tempered with a solid realism. And I think the realistic fact is that we still have a long, long way to go, and that we are involved in a war on Asian soil, which, if not checked and stopped, can poison the very soul of our nation. Oh, I have encountered great difficulties, great problems of resistance, if the war had not been in existence. So that I'm not going to say that all of our problems will be solved if the war in Vietnam is ended.
This is the Underground Railroad Show hosted by your boy,
that the war makes it infinite.
All right, just making sure. All right, there we go. Now we're good. Didn't need a problem on the last question there. All right, so there's a lot to break down right there. Well, Dr. King, what I'd like to do first and foremost is commend you, because I think that's one of our main problems now. People aren't willing to have a conversation to learn or try to get better. What you just did was admit that maybe you were slightly misguided in your original thoughts in '63. And I think it takes a man to do that, and that's the true measure of a man, and that's how one can evolve and get better. So you being able to admit that allows people to understand that you're not admitting some type of defeat by saying that I've evolved over the years, or I've seen things that will not allow me to have the same opinion that I had a few years ago. So I commend you on doing that, because something like that would allow people to understand that it's okay to learn through action or learn through what you've seen. And if what you've seen doesn't match up with what you believe formally, then you evolve and or you use that evidence to show you, okay, I can't believe what I once did because everything in front of me tells me that that's not the truth. So I commend you on that, because that's few and far between nowadays. I don't think that most people are willing or even capable of saying 3 words: I don't know, or I was wrong. Most people aren't willing to do that. I'm not sure why. Maybe it's some form of defeat. Maybe they're not really trying to have a conversation to learn anything, but it's somewhat of a plague today, and I think it prevents us from having true dialogue and progressing. It's a cancer to progression to not be able to learn or admit you were wrong. It's something that's prevalent in today's society. It's through sports broadcasting, nonetheless, the so-called mainstream media that's supposed to allegedly cover real stories. I don't see that from any of these outlets. Finally, Dr. King, and I thank you for being gracious with your time. One of the things that they used to help to try and discredit you was America has misquoted and attacked you because of your thoughts on the Vietnam War. Sir, in your own words, could you explain why you oppose the Vietnam War and why in particular it's a detriment to Black people's fight for equality in America, especially along the lines or within the confines of a financial aspect? So from a financial aspect, a moral aspect, I know personally being drafted to go to a war in a country that doesn't treat you worth a damn is, again, insane. If you're white in this country and they draft you to go to war, that makes sense. If you Black, you have every reason to look at them like they're out of their goddamn mind. And these are the things that offend white America more than watching a Black man get murdered by assholes in uniform, because allegedly their uniform means they can do anything. My favorite quote from Muhammad Ali: the Vietnam War is about white people sending Black people to fight yellow people to defend the country they stole from red people. The entire idea of Black people going to Vietnam was bullshit from the beginning. Black people that went to Vietnam have come back and said, I've seen it on TV and I've heard it in person. They would play over the loudspeakers, "Black man, it's not your war, go home." because they understand the history of the country. So I truly, that's easily one. I don't, again, going back to what Brother Malcolm said, the media can have you hating the oppressed and loving the oppressor. There were actually black people, and some of this was due to the Reverend Michaud, but there were black people that criticized Dr. King or criticized you for this at the behest of the people that you're fighting on behalf of them. And that still occurs to this day, and it's upsetting, it's sad, it's pathetic, and it's infuriating, and it still hasn't changed. But, sir, in your own words, could you explain why you feel the Vietnam War is detrimental to black people in particular, and talk about it from a financial aspect as well, if you don't mind? And once again, I thank you for your
more
time.
Difficult to deal with these problems. When a nation becomes obsessed with the guns of war, it loses its social perspective, and programs of social uplift suffer. This is just a fact of history, so that we do face many more difficulties as a result of the war. It's much more difficult to really arouse a conscience during a time of war. I noticed the other day, some weeks ago, a Negro was shot down in Chicago, and it was a clear case of police brutality. That was on page 30 of the paper, but on page 1 at the top was 780 Viet Cong killed. That is something about a war like this that makes people insensitive. It dulls the conscience. It strengthens the forces of reaction. And it brings into being bitterness and hatred and violence. And it strengthened the military-industrial complex of our country. And it's made our job much more difficult, because I think we can go along with some programs, if we didn't have this war on our hands, that would cause people to adjust to new developments, just as they did in the South. They said they'd never ride the bus with us. Blood would flow in the streets. They wouldn't go to school and all of these things. But when people came to see that they had to do it because the law insisted, they finally adjusted. And I think white people all over this country will adjust once the nation makes it clear that in schools and housing, we've got to learn to live together as brothers. I think the biggest problem now is that we got our gains over the last 12 years at bargain rate, so to speak. Didn't cost the nation anything. In fact, it helped the economic side of the nation to integrate lunch counters and public accommodations. It didn't cost the nation anything to get the right to vote established. And now we are confronting issues that cannot be solved without costing the nation billions of dollars. Now, I think this is where we're getting our greatest resistance. They may put it on many other things, but we can't get rid of slums and poverty without it costing the nation something.
Dr. King, I thank you for your time. I thank you for your knowledge, your wisdom. I thank you for your willingness to evolve and be willing to speak about that publicly. I thank you for your bravery and dealing in a nation of savages that you don't mind speaking out on it in an articulate way that really can't be argued, but yet and still they find a way to hate you, which is truly how they felt about you during this time. I wish that more people followed the example that you set, that Brother Malcolm set, that Medgar Evers set, that Marcus Garvey set, that the minister sets. That Khalid Abdul Muhammad said. That the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said. If we truly had, as a people, if we truly coveted your lessons and the lessons of our true heroes and looked at it as the scripture that it truly is, we'd be so much better off. But I thank you for that answer. And again, for black people, number one, why would we give a fuck? Why would we give a flying fuck about Vietnam and your problem with a poor country you're attacking that happens to not be filled with white people? That's not Dr. King's concern. He's not supposed to give a fuck about the Vietnam War. The only thing that's doing is the country interfering in something that's not their business. They got a lot of black people killed by a country that has shown them through their actions that they don't give a fuck about them. How many black people had... My best friend's father had a very good job at the time and had to go to war because he was drafted. He didn't want to do that shit, but he didn't have a choice. In a fucking country that during his lifetime, had him in the back of the bus and drinking from certain water fountains and not being able to go in certain stores, legally not being able to look a white man in the goddamn eye. Go fight for us. That is fucking crazy. He's not supposed to like the Vietnam War. But even back then, they were able to shift people's opinion. White people, that is what it is. But black people? Opinion being shifted by the media and bitch-made reverends that agreed with J. Edgar Hoover, possibly agreed with him in a lot of ways, is absolutely insane. But Dr. King, to you?
Hey man, break your...
This is the Underground Railroad Show hosted by your boy, that Ninja, annual show on Dr. King and Malcolm X. Thank you for coming aboard and rolling with me. Just had a little Q&A with Dr. King, and I think that, again, I'll reiterate, I think the best thing you can do for any of our heroes is to heed the warnings that they gave us, act accordingly, and not allow those who they oppose to determine your thought process on how you should move in this country, how you should feel about this country, how you should feel about your true heroes, because everybody that's ever done anything for us in this country has been labeled by this country as a terrorist, a detriment, criminal, thug, whatever moniker or label they want to throw on them. I think through Dr. King's words, it showed that he evolved. It showed that he was willing to take a look at what was in front of him, not ignore the truth, and realize that my previous approach, although well-intended, was not as effective as I would have liked it to be. And he reevaluated his situation, reevaluated his approach, and was gaining allies that the government didn't like, and that is what cost him his life, and that's what cost Brother Malcolm his life. And just as a side note, I think it says something that the government got to Brother Malcolm, but they didn't get to Elijah Muhammad. And as much as they may try, they can't get to Brother Minister. Something to be said about that. There's something to be said about an effective blueprint. And notice that how do I put this? Notice that the behaviors, notice that the same excuses. I get frustrated because everything they're doing now is no different than the same bullshit they said back then. And because of lack of knowledge or this dire, on some level, a lot of us worship, a lot of us subconsciously worship this culture, because nothing's legitimate unless they approve it, unless it's on their news station, unless it's part of their narrative. Anything that you know deep down inside might offend them, whether it be true or not, you tend to avoid. Again, I think that those January 6th posts are a prime example. Something that is a fact that they did as pure ignorance, that is undeniable, that you cannot argue in any way, shape, form, or fashion was a good thing, and most black people won't address it or don't care. But those same black people have about 87 P. Diddy posts. It's so goddamn stupid. I'm not saying you can't have posts about that, but if you think that's offensive, where are the posts about the worst people that have ever lived, their descendants erasing our history? Where are the posts about January 6th and every last worthless, low-life motherfucker that went there that should have been shot in the face and set on fire? Where's that? You should be able to say that with impunity. And if you have to do it in a business sense, I had family that were in the armed forces. My father was a Marine. Any black person that goes to the military and serves is so much more of a so-called patriot than any white American. Because the instant you have a problem with the country, you act like a bitch. And that's through evidence, through history. January 6th, if you didn't go, you blindly supported it. You'll never be as a true patriot or somebody that actually acted in a way that, was what this country is supposed to be about. Black people that go to the military have way more in them than the average white person. Number one, if you're white, you should go. For a black person to go for a country that doesn't give a fuck about them, it's crazy. And no black person went up there on that bullshit you were on. More of a right to do some shit like that than us. Holding to watch a bunch of weak-ass Anglos throw a tantrum because they didn't get their way in a system they created from a country they fucking stole. And these are the people that I'd say most black people hold their tongue for. And the same ones let it fly when talking about anybody black, whether the narrative is actually true or not. Whether the narrative is actually true or not. Some sad shit. Let me read these. Let me read the chat that's in here. And depending on where I'm at mentally, maybe I'll say something about the game. I don't think I'm there. Thank you all for confirming the volume. Sluggo said, as Dr. King stated, white moderates are often a greater obstacle to black Americans than open racists. They're the quintessential Barry O voters. Preach, sir, preach. And I'll clarify. I remember that quote. And you just gave us that quote. I think I remember the rest of it. And as a matter of fact, while I'm looking for the bomb, here it is. I believe the quote is, the Negro's biggest obstacle in our fight for equality is not the Klansman or the hooded Klansman or the Aryan Nation member. It's the white moderate who says, I agree with you. I believe in you. I'm with you. I just can't agree in the method of which you go about getting it. I want you to get your freedom, but do it in a way that makes me comfortable. And that's the good Anglo. That statement alone deserves an ass whooping. To quote John Henry Clark, somebody brought to my attention by Sluggo, to quote, to don't owe anybody anything but an ass whooping. I repeat, black people don't owe anybody anything but an ass whooping. Sluggo said Dr. King dropping a Baldwin quote. Yes, he did. Called him Jimmy Baldwin. Sluggo said society was failed in 1966 and it's still a failed society in 2026. Again, preach.
Amen, preacher!
Preach, sir. ABM said, wait a minute, I missed something. Earlier, ABM said, Nick just told us sound bites. Nick just told us no sound bites due to the limitations of the Acer. No, sir. No, sir. Due to the limitations of StreamYard, due to their limitations, I can only have so many things in this soundbite area or in this studio. In my media asset file, I can only have so many things in there, so I had to make room for the interview. ABM said, Leg Adonis fucking up. That's why I bleep a backup service. I think he had to speak in code. Oh, really? That's not good. That's not good. If you're speaking about what I think you're speaking about, not legato. That's not good. That's not positive. Speaking of which, I guess I cut this shit on. I'm still not there mentally. I don't think I got a lot of commentary for this shit. I'm sure it's about that time. And I'm sure your backup is what I'm about to go to now. Sluggo said, yep. Luckily, I have my MAGA brother-in-law's YouTube TV login on my phone. So obviously, y'all are speaking about Legato was acting up. Yeah, I actually, for undisclosed reasons, I do have access to YouTube TV. I would have to change rooms, but I do have access. But I believe, unless I'm mistaken, I'm probably not going to have issues due to the great yellow one, due to the yellow one and him granting me access to something that I believe is going to be just fine for me. And I am correct, as apparently, it's underway, just underway. So, I mean, we'll see. Okay, as we continue. Okay, read that one. All right, and that's about right. Let me say this. As Dr. King stated, speaking about the hypocrisy, the people that said they were with it, not all the so-called senators from the Midwest and the West didn't vote for any action for the civil rights movement. So that hypocrisy has been going on for a long time from so-called supporters. I believe Brother Malcolm wholeheartedly agreed with Dr. King when asked, did he think that America or the political process could do anything for the progression of black people in this country?
We don't believe that black people will ever get any problem with laws being passed or new persons being put in office, white liberals being put in office. There is nothing that the white man will ever do to bring about true, sincere citizenship or civil rights recognition for black people in this country. Nothing will they ever do. They will always talk it, but they won't practice it.
And again, that's why I believe these were two soldiers in the same fight. That's essentially what Dr. King said. And I believe Brother Malcolm also said that no regulations, no laws, nothing through this political process is going to change our condition. And he made a great point as to why. Brother Malcolm, could you elaborate?
If the white people really passed meaningful laws, it would not be necessary to pass any more laws. There are already enough laws on the law books to protect an American citizen. You only need additional laws when you're dealing with someone who is not regarded as an American citizen. But whites are so hypocritical. They don't want to admit that this black man is not a citizen. So they classify him as a second-class citizen to get around making him a real citizen. If he was a real citizen, you'd need no more laws. You'd need no civil rights legislation. Civil rights, when you have civil rights, you have citizenship. It's automatic. White people don't need laws to protect their citizenship because they're citizens. But they don't want to tell us we're not citizens. And at the same time, they don't want to pass laws that are meaningful enough to protect us as if we were citizens. And the Supreme Court.
So again, same opinions, maybe putting across in a slightly different way. Let me close up with this. As Dr. King interview showed, there are situations where you, when talking about the Reverend Michaud, there are situations where they use people to look like us to attack us, and they glorify them in the media. And again, that's why Malcolm X warned you about the media machine. So this is why I say we should disregard anything that they give us, anything that's a source or that they control. I remember growing up hearing all the time that when a black person does something, somebody would scream out, that's why they act the way they do or treat us like that. Such extreme cowardice and or stupidity is fucking crazy. It's a white narrative, but it was pushed by so many black people that fell victim to psychological warfare. Nothing that we have done or have ever done makes white people or makes Anglos act the way they act. They do that because that's who they are. It's not because of our actions or inaction. And to even suggest that is insulting. And again, if that was valid, then we could point to one of the many actions by one white person, apply that to everybody in America. And if that's the case, we should be acting a fool before anybody, but we don't. So either we're weak or they're savages, but it cannot be both. It cannot be both. Sidney Jackson said, while liberals love empty symbolism like wearing kente cloths or making a Jamaican Indian vice president. And thank you for saying that. That's a perfect segue. Again, when we address Kamala and talk about her past and the things that she's done and how she should at least be asked, do you still feel this way? Do you still believe that you should defend police not having cameras as they murder your citizens and brutalize people that look like you? Do you still feel that it was okay to defend a system that wrongfully put a black man in jail as you stood there and tried to keep him in jail despite the evidence to the contrary? Are you still that person? If you are, I can't vote for you. And when this discussion was brought up, we were met with Anglo mentality statements like, you hate women. That is what they do when they're held accountable for their bullshit. And instead of us learning from our true heroes, we're devolving and actually assimilating to their stupid shit. Do you know how many 50-plus-year-old black men I've heard say things similar to basically acting like being held accountable for what they said or did is an attack. You know, the same thing that they do. If you say something, you're accountable for that. If somebody brings them that up, there's nothing wrong with them. You said it. That's what keeps people from just opening their mouth and saying any fucking thing. I hate the fact that I think most of us do that now. That was something they always did. Lack of accountability. Whole shit. I hear grown black men saying that now. When you hold them accountable for what they did, there's some kind of whole ass response that's a deflection that discusses everything but what they actually did. If you did or said something, you're accountable for that. It's part of being a man and or an adult. And I think we've deteriorated to something less than that. And it's sad as hell. But again, along those lines of what you just said, Sydney, instead of having that discussion, you're met with the dumbass statement, you hate women. And then instead of talking about the white people in this country that put a racist, a terrorist, and somebody that promoted an attack on the country in office, you're screaming at black people who had nothing to do with who's actually in office. Once again, that references Super Senior. He knew who threw that trash at him, but he didn't want to fight that dude, so he attacked somebody else. And that's what you cowards are doing. You're Super Senior. You're the dude that's supposed to be a senior, but you're taking freshman classes and you're attacking the small fish because you're too much of a coward or you have too much reverence for your God. You're not going to attack them. But when you refuse to address the problem and always make excuses for the problem, whether you like the way it sounds or not, that is your God. I just don't know what they've understood, what they've done to earn that status is all. And again, to those short-sighted people that want to push that dumb narrative. I say to you, I just stated the issue I had with Kamala. If you don't understand that and you just want to throw it away, you're different than me. I can compartmentalize. I can vote for somebody and still say, I don't give a shit about this bitch because her history has shown me she's one of them. She's a Reverend Michaud. She's the FBI agents that were hired to take down Marcus Garvey. That's what she comes off to me. Didn't I hear her say there's no racism in this country? Didn't she laugh when asked if she was going to do something for black people? But you'll speak up for everything and everybody else. I love to support black women. I support Carol Anderson.
Don't see it. And so I set out to blow graphite onto that fingerprint, to be able to trace white rage throughout time, not all the way back to time immemorial with the dinosaurs, but at least up to the Civil War all the way through to 2016. And one of the things that became clear to me as I started thinking through how white rage works, it became clear to me that the presence of black people was not the trigger for white rage. There's that stunned, almost what you talking about, Willis? Look. It is the presence of black people with ambition. The presence of black people with drive. The presence of black people with aspirations. The presence of black people who achieve. It's the presence of black people who refuse to accept their subjugation. The presence of black people who demand their rights. That's the trigger for white rage. And this society has therefore punished black resilience and black resolve.
I'll support that, but they won't let Carol Anderson run for office. Not if she's going to stand on business like that. I'll support the young lady and the professor that Sluggo told me where she was from, but I can't remember. But she spoke about Abu Bakari II and the false history of America and why they push this false history when there's so much evidence to the contrary. I can support this young lady as well because she supports us.
What do you do with all of this written literature and history that says that Abu Bakari II of Mali sent 200 ships to the west? One came back and said they were afraid that the others disappeared. And then to have Balboa find this village that looks just like Mali, where he was, what do you do with this information? You ignore it. You ignore it. Why? To preserve the myth of white superiority. That's what our whole educational process is devoted to. What do you do with this whole history? This is a written history, my dear. Written. I'm not talking about hearsay. I'm not talking about a griot said this. I'm not talking about something handed down from one generation to the other through voice. I'm talking about written history of the Egyptians. What do you do with this? You ignore it.
I can support that. I can support that. So these are the things I take away from the interview, man. Hey, look, appreciate y'all. I'm about to get ready to do what y'all doing and check this game out. I honestly don't have a lot of thoughts. I'll address this on a separate show. I just football's not on my brain right now. I know that sounds crazy, but I'll address this later. I'll just say if Miami is able to play the way that they've been playing, they should be okay. If they're able to do all the same things I've watched them do throughout the playoffs, they'll be okay. I'll just keep it there. I'll just say it that simple. I'll keep it there. Appreciate that, JBJ. I'm gonna close this out with a great some great content that was given to me from ABM, and this is a great way to summarize the Dr. King interview and a great way to end the show. Look, I appreciate y'all. I'm going to play this. I might have a little something to say after this clip from the minister, but the minister summed it up about Dr. King, and and how somebody that actually cares about his legacy or that was around him, how they should speak about him in today's society. So I'll allow the minister to close out the annual Dr. King and Malcolm X episode. And once again, shout out to ABM for the assist.
But in the last year of his life, you should read Tabby Smiley's book on the death of a king. And the preachers turned on Doc. Wait now. See, some of you are angry with me, thinking I'm trying to steal Dr. King's legacy. Hell no. Don't put that on me. And don't let the white man put that on you so you could put that on me. I'm raising Dr. King because it is wrong for you to think that that man died because he had a dream. That man was a revolutionary thinker in the last days of his life. Some of his inner circle turned on him. They didn't agree with him talking against the war in Vietnam. He was hurting that his own staff, some of them disagreed with him. Then churches denied him. They didn't want him in their pulpit. Now it's easy to put his picture up and talk that crap about how you love him. You a damn liar if you loved him. I want you to listen. If you loved him, why did you let the writers of history write him down as a dreamer and pacify you with all these streets and boulevards named after him? But if you read his life, in the last 2 years of his life, he met with my teacher. They had a beautiful discussion February 66. I don't know what they talked about, but I know my teacher. He loved Dr. King, but he showed him prophecy. He showed him where we are to separate from this enemy and not be integrated into him as Moses didn't integrate the children of Israel into Pharaoh. So in that last night, when he said, I want to get the language straight tonight, he stopped talking Negro and began talking black. Yes, he did. He even agreed that separation might be better for us for a while. Like a people sick or diseased, you take them out of the public and you heal them. And then you send them back to the world. I didn't know these were things that Dr. King was saying. And when I read it, I said, this man, you must know the reality of Dr. King. He's more than a dreamer. And don't you let them throw the dream speech on you from 63. Let them play for you the speech that he made in New York City when he condemned the hypocrisy of the Johnson government that's fighting a war in Vietnam against poor people there and practicing violence, then want Dr. King to preach nonviolence to us while they're training you to kill people that never did nothing to you overseas.
Amen, preacher!
Preach, brother minister, says ABM. Thank you for that assist, sir. Okay, allow me on the tail end of that. Allow me to address these outside things before I get out of here. We got Chef McFeezy on the train. What's going on, sir? The last two shows, I'll post those. I forgot to do so. I don't think it was the last three. But this show and the show previous to this one, I'll make sure I post that one so you can see it or hear it, rather. I'm on the tail end of this one, but let me say this. Where am I at? Okay, addressing this, just for clarity. And thanks, JBJ. ABM said Nick is down that Ohio State is not playing and Indiana on in denial on how good Indiana is. Now, I think they're just okay. I mean, they made it to the championship, but I still don't think they're world beaters. I think everybody that played them made enough mistakes for them to win. We had a sorry quarterback that threw a pick six. The other team that I thought should have beat them, I'm trying to remember, who did they play? They just kept turning the ball over and shit. What happened again? I'm trying to remember who it was. Who did they play? Oregon. Yeah, Oregon just came out there and just kept turning the ball over. My man dropped back one time to throw, and the damn running back was in the way of his arm. He threw the ball in his hand. His elbow hit the running back's helmet. Fumble. I mean, it was interesting. It was interesting. But, I mean, it is what it is, dude. But it's the Ohio State thing, it just doesn't fly. If y'all been paying attention at all, I'm not high on Ohio State. Even when we won, you notice I wasn't too high on it because I didn't like the way that it went. And I know these dumb motherfuckers now think they can get away with this mediocre Anglo quarterback shit. And we try to do that shit again this year because we thought we could magically turn it on at the end after playing mediocre ball. Magically turn it on. Give me one quick second. My apologies. My apologies. My apologies. Family first. Family first. It is what it is. Sluggo, I actually haven't watched that 5150 show. I heard about it. I haven't watched it yet, which is strange for me, but I haven't watched it yet. I still need to sit down and watch it. I'll probably do it tonight after I get done with this shit. So I have not watched it yet. Let me address this. Let me say this. But yeah, I'm not the Ohio State thing, man. I really didn't. I'm more upset about all the teams I would have liked to have seen in the finals being gone. I wanted Ole Miss and Oregon. I got Indiana, Miami. I mean, that shit is what it is. And in my statement earlier, what I was basically saying is, if Miami is allowed to slow dance with the defensive linemen like they've been doing for the entire playoffs, and quite frankly, every game I've seen, they're just letting teams hold. So if they continue that trend, they should be able to overtake them, with running the ball and occasional play action, because that defense truly is nasty. And without help that Indiana's got with these turnovers, I don't think they've necessarily been forced. But if Miami doesn't give the ball away, it's going to be interesting to see what Indiana's going to do without help. So if they're going to let both teams hold like they've been doing the whole playoffs, they just letting everybody, like both teams linemen, they're just letting everybody hold. They're not really calling a lot of holds. I just saw that hold on Indiana. That was almost too obvious. But I've seen shit just like that they have not called. They're just letting it go. So if they let that go, I think it's to Miami's advantage. And that benefits them even more than it benefits in Indiana. So that's what I meant when I said that they're allowed to play the way they've been playing. If they can keep slow, if they basically let both teams' offensive line hold all they want to, that benefits Miami, in my opinion. Because obviously the defense is still nasty, and they're still letting the defense play nasty football, hitting people late, popping people. It's just good football, but generally they throw a flag for that. So they let Miami do that, they got a good shot. That's what I meant. I don't care about the Big Ten. I never have. I'm a fan of the SEC because that's why I believe the best football is. I'm a fan of Ohio State, not the Big Ten. I've said that a billion times. So it's not that. It's just that this year in college and pro football, it's as if the mainstream said, I want it. It's as if God said everything that I dislike in football, he was going to make it happen. And he's like, okay, everything he doesn't like, I got that in a little ball. Boom, nigga. And that's what both seasons have been. NFL and college is everything I dislike as far as who's winning. So that's the reason why I lack enthusiasm. Everything about college and pro has been everything that I didn't want to see, and all of that shit is coming to fruition. So I'm not thrilled right now. It's football. I'll enjoy it for that reason. But yeah, no, I'm not hyped. Not at all. Not hyped, not at all, sir. There was something else. Okay, I'll address that. The Ohio State thing. I'm definitely not rooting for Indiana, JBJ. Between the two, I'll take Miami and I'll do the same weak excuse like everybody else. Well, at least we lost to the team that eventually won the title. But if they win on a nasty defense, I still got to hear about Carson Beck. If Indiana wins, I got to hear that goofy ass story. I'm not happy either way. The NFL, same thing. Every storyline sucks. Every damn storyline. But it is what it is, man. It is what it is. On the way out, let me say this because Mac Feasy said that Ninja already mentioned how Josh Allen is overrated and not clutch. I've been saying that every damn year, bro. I've been saying it every year. But again, let me show you how powerful the mainstream is. All the so-called people that think for themselves that may or may not do shows, they didn't take the time to shit on Josh Allen like they should have. They didn't take the time to shit on Brock Purdy like they should have. As far as how he actually played in the game. None of them took the time to do that because the mainstream didn't. They gave both of them a pass, and mostly everybody else did the same shit. So basically what I'm saying at McPhee is nobody's going to remember. But I didn't bring it up because this wasn't a football day for me. You know, in the Dr. King Malcolm X episode, I really don't get into football except on the tail end. And since I started later than I wanted to today, I'm not about to get into it now because I'm about to watch this game. And my sister's about to come over. I'm about to chill out, relax, do some things. I might pull some cod out and fry that up, depending on how long she hangs. So, but let me say this before I get out of here. Mac Feasy, since you are in here, Sydney said, I haven't watched an NFL game since that pathetic offensive performance by my Eagles offense. And again, that was the fault of the OC. And they want to talk about everything but the OC. They fired him, but so what? He sucked all year. He was obviously a problem. So what's the difference? But you can't ask a team to run a conservative offense and then say, okay, all of a sudden I want you to be great. And when they can't do it, they suck. There's no accountability. You can't be conservative and the safeties are right there waiting on everything and wonder why it's so hard to complete a pass because it's predictable. And that's never really talked about. Only if the quarterback is Anglo. If he's a ninja, everything is his fault. I'm not about to get into that shit today. But I'll say this since Mac Feasy's in here, and I know you'll appreciate it. Sir, I made some dirty rice. I do ground beef now, and I just season the ground beef. Obviously, I don't do pork, but the traditional dirty rice with I put the ground beef in it and some sausage. You see medley of seasonings, celery, peppers, and believe it or not, sir, I voluntarily put a shallot in the dirty rice. So I cut up a shallot. And I know that's supposed to be the least potent of the onion family, but it still stunk to me. But I cut it down to nothing. Hold on, sis. Let me pop the dough. I cut it down to nothing and made it part of the dish. Hold on one second. Move that shit right there. Yeah, they're gonna be good. Let me shut this down. Matter of fact, hey, I tell you what. Do you know where the supplies are? Yeah. You can grab that if you want to and go ahead and get something ready. Thank you, ma'am. My apologies. This is the Underground Railroad Show hosted by your boy, that Ninja Man. Let's get ready to shut this down. Sidney Jackson said the Charlotte is the Billy Porter of the Onion family. Okay, man. Okay. Hey man, listen. I mean, what's the problem? Yeah, I replaced the ground pork because it had ground pork in it. I don't eat pork no more, so I had to replace it with some ground beef, and I seasoned it, and it made it one of my favorite dishes again. You feel me? I had to do that. McPhee's is saying ground beef ? Who are you, and what happened to Ninja and his Norwegian taste bud? I don't have Norwegian taste buds, sir. Hey, listen, I told you I've been experiencing a few things. Yeah, JVJ. Hey, I told you I'm finna shut it down, man. JVJ said this guy just gets up in the middle of the podcast. Motherfuckers is selfish as fuck. Hey, man, I apologize, man. It is what it is. It is what it is. Hey, look, man, I appreciate y'all. I didn't know y'all was going to react to that. Let's see. JBJ said they're definitely letting them play. Charlotte's being called the Billy Porter of the Onion family is fucking hysterical. Hey, look, man, appreciate y'all. We're going to get out of here. We're going to get out of here on a Malcolm X quote. We're going to get out of here on a Malcolm X quote. We'll get out here on a Malcolm X quote. I appreciate y'all. I'll give you a bonus show this week, and I'll address a little bit of football. I had another show ready to go, but I never got it off. It actually wasn't concerning football. The show was actually called Ignorant Cowards Everywhere. ICE. So I'll get to that, but not today. Not today. I'll give y'all this quote and we're going to get out of here. Game should be interesting. Not a lot of scoring right now. Probably going to be ugly. That defense is nasty. And if they can stop the offenses that they've stopped, I don't know how Indiana's going to score unless I don't know how Indiana's going to score with them being able to slow down the people that they slow down. I guess it is what it is. We'll see. But let's end here. Where are we at? The Minnesota. No, not there. Let's go here. Which one do I want to? Let's go there. Let's do this one. This goes with what we've been talking about. More think about it. I hope I left myself enough room to even put that on there. This thing's about to tell me this thing's full, isn't it? Can I remove stem? Oh, now we're good. All right, man. Appreciate y'all. We're going to end on one of my favorite quotes from Brother Malcolm. And it addresses integration and the detriment that it was and still is. Hey, look, man, I appreciate y'all. I'll see y'all next time. As always, take care and be easy.
It's just like when you got some coffee that's too black, which means it's too strong. What you do, you integrate it with cream. Make it weak. If you pour too much cream in, you won't even know you ever had coffee. It used to be hot, it becomes cool. It used to be strong, it becomes weak. It used to wake you up, now it'll put you to sleep. It's just like when you got some coffee that's too black, which means it's too strong. What you do, you integrate it with cream. You make it weak. If you pour too much cream in, you won't even know you ever had coffee. It used to be hot, it becomes cool. It used to be strong, it becomes weak. It used to wake you up, now it'll put you to sleep.